street. I bump into a lot of you. And so that was always really awesome. And just talking to really interesting people that are doing interesting things. You'll be amazed how many extraordinary black people there are who don't have a record deal. Or don't play in the NBA or or don't tell jokes for a living. We they don't tell us about those black people. They only tell us about the ones that make them laugh and can dribble basketballs and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, I met one brother, a young kid, 24 years old, who sold his app to some company for $5 million. I have seen, let's see, I met another guy who was doing trading in energy and gas and stuff like that. And he'd made millions of dollars doing that. I met some people. I went to this, I met the staff from a great school called Prairie State Community College, and I met the president. His name was Michael Anthony, and I had a great conversation with him. I liked him because he understood. I think I mentioned this to you all yesterday. Like he gets us, he gets me, he gets this, right? And a lot of times that's the unfortunate reality is that there are lots of us, lots of our people that are kind of stuck in these corporate plantation situations where they're almost like afraid to be independent thinkers. They're almost afraid to endorse ideas that are not sort of accepted by white people. In a way, we kind of need other people to tell us that our ideas are okay, to tell us that they're safe enough, to tell us that they're actually going to work. And in fact, actually, now that I think about that, this can really affect your economic consciousness because it's almost like you're trying to get to a destination, and it's a destination that nobody else is trying to get to. And so you get on the phone with your buddy, and you tell your buddy where you're trying to go, and they say, no, 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 you go up the street and you make a left. But in their head, they're thinking about a different destination. They're showing you how to get to Billy's bar, and you're not trying to get to Billy's bar. You're trying to get to, North Park. But you're afraid to sort of go your own path. You go the path your buddy tells you, and then you end up where he wants you to be instead of ending up where you're supposed to be. And I think that generally that's one of the challenges that we have is when we're taught by other people what it means to be black and successful, we get it wrong. We end up getting it wrong and then we end up feeling unsuccessful. I saw a video the other day. Actually, I wanted to put this on my Instagram, but it was basically this video of a Gen Xer who was basically talking about white people who are also Gen Xers. Now, Gen X is, I think, 45 to like 58 or something, like people that were like kind of came of age in the 80s and early 90s. And she was basically expressing her disappointment in Gen X, in white Gen X. She was basically saying, we fell in love with hip hop together. We went to school together. We felt like you were our friends. Our parents were the civil rights generation, and you promised us that things were going to be different and that the world had changed, and you lied. You became just like your parents and everything else. And I saw that video and I was very, very sad for her because I think that sometimes maybe being a little too trusting when someone or some group has not proven themselves to be trustworthy can really throw you off. And I think that what happened with the Gen X group is that we got caught in this belief. I remember hearing, let me know if you remember this, where you were told that affirmative action is going to save you, that because you're black and talented, all these companies are going to want you. I remember I got a scholarship to go to college from this group called Black Achievers in Louisville, Kentucky, and then I went to the University of Kentucky, and I was sort of part of their black scholarship program. When I first got there, my scholarship was only $500, believe it or not, so I didn't have enough money to do anything. I had to go. I remember searching desperately for a job, hoping Popeyes would hire me, and they didn't hire me, so it was kind of bad. I did get a job at Hardee's, and that was where those guys were using cocaine in the bathroom in the middle of the night. It was the graveyard shift. It was crazy, and that old white lady tried to sleep with me for money. I told y'all that story, and that was weird. I was like, oh my God, that's so gross. Like you're the age of my mother. Like I couldn't do that. And so anyway, that was my experience, right? And so common sense got me through all of that, right? I even at 18, I was like, I'm not messing with no drugs. I got too many drug addicts and alcoholics that I've seen in my family, and I'm not going home with this old white lady. No matter how much of my rent she's going to pay, and so anyway, so I remember going to school, and I remember having one simple dream, and it was the wrong dream. And my dream was that I was going to make really good grades and get a really good job and I was going to work at some company like General Electric and get to feel important. Like I would carry a briefcase or something and have a really nice office and have a nice salary. And then I would go and buy me a nice house and a nice car and maybe get me a nice wife to go with it and kind of live that, that false dream. I think that's a false dream to some extent. And I can explain why, but that was all I could really think about. And I remember the only reason I was connected to that dream was because I had a daughter when I was 18. I discovered sex in high school, and then I discovered that pregnancy is the result of sex. And so I had this baby and I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. And I figured that education was my pathway out. The only three options I knew to exist were going to school, going to the military, or continuing to work at Taco Bell or Hardee's or whatever. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go to the military because I didn't want to get shot. But shout out to the veterans. I met a lot of military commanders this week from the Navy mostly. These are high ranking officials, and every time I see them, I say thank you for your service, thank you for your service because they served. I didn't have to, right? So I'm extremely grateful for that, and I have a lot of respect for that. But I just chose not to do that. And so school was kind of the only option. So I went to college, and by basically, that was when I learned how much I'd picked up from sports about work ethic and everything else. Like sports and having a tough father really gave me, and my mother, I have a passionate mother and a very tough father, and they're both independent thinkers, which was extremely beneficial. And they're big on like personal accountability. Like, what did you do wrong? What you take responsibility. So because of all these variables kind of coming together, that kind of gave me like a tough resilience that allowed me to do really well in college. I had the highest grade point average of all the black students on campus, and that surprised everybody, including me. I felt like I was a fraud for a while. I was like, I'm not that smart. Why do I have the highest grade point average? And so anyway, so I think a lot of times with Gen X, what sort of happened with us is that we sort of believed that all the alleged progress that had been made socially was going to just create these permanent opportunities and possibilities for us. I remember I wasn't able to think about economics beyond the first half of it, which was get a good job, buy a nice car, get a nice house. And so the measures of status, the measures of success were how much money you made, what kind of house you lived in, what kind of car you drove, things like that, what you could buy, maybe what university you graduated from. Even though University of Kentucky is nothing special, it was nice, but it wasn't anything special. And I think generally speaking, that goes back to what we were talking about before, where if you are raised as a consumer, and I spent the whole weekend explaining a lot of this to my son. I'm his bonus dad and his best friend. And I said, a lot of times we only see half of the economic equation. We only see the economic equation from the perspective that the capitalist pimps want us to see it. And I use the term capitalist pimp very deliberately and intentionally because I said, if you understand pimping, you understand the core of capitalism, like the very worst form of capitalism. The goal of capitalism is to minimize, not maximize, it's to minimize your degree of economic consciousness. The goal of capitalism is to make sure that you are not aware, that you're not looking over there and counting other people's money and saying, "Hey, well, what y'all eating over there?" Like, wait, I got the fried chicken, but what y'all got some filet mignon over there? What y'all doing over there? Because once you get exposed to these ideas, then you start to think differently. You start to do things differently. You're less willing to do what you used to do. Just like the Haitian Revolution was literally driven by the fact that they had leadership that was exposed to freedom. They'd read books about the French Revolution. They're like, "Oh, all men are created equal." What? Wait a minute, hold on, I'm a man. That means I'm equal to you. Why you? Well, then what's this other thing you got going on over here? So a lot of times, a reduced consciousness is driven partly by limiting the exposure you have to various forms of information. And this is very important. This is something we got to understand as a community is that they will do everything they can to keep a black man from wanting to read a book. They can keep black women from opening books up and being exposed to new ideas. Oh, they'll do that all day long because that makes you easier to control. So when we embrace that, when we embrace anti-intellectualism, when we embrace this idea that we're supposed to just follow the crowd and do what everybody else does, you're really falling right into that trap of low consciousness, low vibrational thinking. Low vibrational thinking is what holds capitalism together. If everyone started thinking on the highest levels and wanting to be the best they could be and being independent thinkers, we'd be in big trouble as a country. John D. Rockefeller, he even said when he was funding the school system, the quote I saw was he basically said, I don't want a country full of people that are thinking independently. I need a country full of people that are going to shut up and not think too much and get up and go to work every day. That's what I need because I don't need more captains of industry. I don't need more competitors. I need more employees. That's what I need. I don't need people up here thinking they could be the next Rockefeller. I don't need people out here raising capital and building industry and becoming producers and all that. I need people that are going to take that little salary, go to work every day, and buy into the American dream. So a lot of ideas are directly and intentionally marketed to you, and they sometimes come with these false status symbols like, like, okay, I'm doing well because I've got a high salary, I'm renting a nice apartment, and I'm buying myself nice stuff. Like that to me is almost like the elementary school version of economic consciousness. That's in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, I refer to that as economic immaturity. Economic immaturity is where your thinking is not fully developed. Your growth, your economic growth, your psychological growth as it pertains to economics, it's stunted. You get to level, you're supposed to go to level 12, but you get to level 4 and you just stop there. And part of it is because they kind of need you to stop there. They're like, look, we need you to stay right there because if you start going up too high, then you're not going to want to come to work. Like literally, after I finished talking to these two young black men, I talked to them the whole weekend. My son and his best buddy. By the time we got done, they were both like fully prepared to quit their jobs. They were both fully prepared to start their own business. They fully had a completely different goal for their lives than they had before. And it wasn't because I tried to talk them into it, because I don't feel like I have to explain to you why freedom is better than slavery. I don't think I have to explain to you why being great is and successful and fulfilled is better than being unfulfilled and stressed out and irritated and annoyed. And actually, in fact, I put something on Instagram, or not, I'm sorry, on Twitter, that I think I when sometimes I say stuff when it's right off the dome, it can sound confusing, right? It can sound offensive, and it wasn't meant to be offensive, but I think I put something funny up, like, or I was being silly, and I think I wrote something like, "There's 161 million slaves in America, and the government calls them employees." And a lot of course, that's going to automatically trigger either some amens or that's right, or there's going to be a lot of like, why are you looking down on employees? That's disrespectful. We need people who are going to sweep the streets. And I agree with all of that 100%. I completely agree with that. Completely. There's no ounce of disagreement with any of that because hardworking people are extremely important for every society. I think that working hard, especially if you're working hard on the right things, is incredibly important. But I did say this, and I said, and I've mentioned it in class before, but I want to. Okay, Rod says my sound is off. All right, so I'm going to pause for Rod. Can y'all hear me? Give me a yes if my sound is coming through. Okay, Rod says the sound is off. Give me a yes if I'm coming through. All right, I want to make sure Patricia, Anthony, Antoinette, Douglas, Travis. Okay, Karen, I see you. Okay, all right, yeah. So, yeah, if somebody can message Rod and just say, "Hey, Rod, your sound is off. The sound is not off, but your sound is okay." Just making sure. All right. And gosh, and I'm gonna be on the road. I'm literally traveling all over the world in the next like 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm really worried about like, oh gosh, what's it going to be like trying to go to different hotels? And I'm going to, I'm going, by the way, I'm going to Fraser Net's conference, the Power Networking conference in Charlotte this week. I'm going to speak there, and then I'm going to go straight to Europe and spend time with one of my girls. We're going to be there for a few days, daddy daughter trip. It's my homegirl. I'm so proud of her. I don't talk much about her. My daughter is going to speak at the All Black National Convention, and you'll meet her. Her name is Monique. But right now, I don't talk too much. I don't like to sort of push my family onto you too much. And but all my kids will be there. Actually, a bunch of them will. So anyway, and then also after that, we're going to Egypt. We're doing the group trip to Egypt with the Black Business School, and that trip is sold out. There's no more space for that. But we're going to do another one. We're going to go to South Africa, and that's the destination we chose. And as soon as that's announced, I will let you guys know first, so you can decide if you'd like to join us. All right. So anyway, let's get back to it. Okay. So we're talking about, yeah. Somebody says don't interrupt Dr. B when he's on a roll. You're right, because my ADD kicks in, and then I go in another direction. And I forget where I was. But yeah. So generally, I said about this employment thing, and I said, look, I don't think employees are slaves. I said, you have to decide if you're a slave. Only you know if you're a slave. Let me define slavery for you, and then you can decide, okay, do I feel like a slave or not? Slavery is it's not a lack of compensation. It's a lack of freedom. Slavery just means that you want to do something and you can't do it. You have to do something else. Slavery means you're forced to do things you don't want to do. That's slavery to me. It's like, okay, I'm going to take over you just like you're a robot and I'm the computer programmer, and what I tell you to do, you're going to do. Right. So obviously slavery and freedom is a continuum. Slavery does not mean you're not compensated. That was that chattel slavery that we had in America, but you can be paid and be a slave. You can sell yourself into slavery and just make sure you get all the money. That's at least at the very least that's the benefit of being employed versus being an 1822 slave is that when you sell yourself and you sell your freedom, you're getting compensated in return. So even there are even times where I'm a slave. If I go give a speech, somebody pays me money and my speaking fee is not small. It's like my official fee is $20,000. If you pay me for my time, yeah, I work for you. Like, what you need? How can I help? That's my attitude. It's not like, oh well, I get to do what I want to do. I didn't earn that. I didn't pay for that. You paid for my time. I sold you my time. Therefore, that means that I am to some extent under your control. I'm not a complete slave, right? You can't go and take me to a Diddy party and do nasty things to me, but I will do the work that we agreed upon because that's the agreement. So slavery, it's more complex than what we make it into. I think that we think about just the old school slavery, but I think that really when you look at this and you think, do you define slavery as a lack of freedom? That's it. Let's just go to that point. I would argue that most people that go to work every day, I would say that there's a difference between going to work because you want to versus going to work because you have to. And we've hit this point before, but I want to drill into this because I put on Twitter the $10 million question. The $10 million question was, if you had $10 million in the bank right now, would you go to work at your current job? If you had $10 million in the bank, would you keep going to your job or would you quit? About two-thirds of the respondents said, hell no, I wouldn't go back to that job. And then one-third said, yeah, I would keep working because I like what I do. Well, then that's good. That means that you have when you say I would still work even if I had plenty of money, that means that your day-to-day task required from your boss is an adequate partnership. It's in alignment with your purpose. It's in alignment with your personal goals. It's like if somebody asks you for a ride and you're going in that direction anyway, it's nothing but a thing to give them a ride. But if someone asks you for a ride and it's in complete opposite direction of where you want to go, well, then that's a damn inconvenience. That's a complete waste of time. There's no benefit to that. There's no synergy in that. And I think that part of economic consciousness, it doesn't mean everybody quits their job and, we hate the man and all this. No, consciousness means processing things and saying, gosh, is this really the vision I have for my life? Is this really going to fit? Because I explained to my son and his friend, I said, people don't understand how money is used all throughout our society to control and enslave people. People get colonized every day when it comes to money. You're not a colleague, you're a colonizer, right? Let me explain. I said to them, the example I said, okay, so how much do you make at your job? And one of them said about $18 an hour. I said, what do you make at yours? He said about 14. I said, do you know, I said, so what if I just said to you, I need you to come and work with me every single day and I'm gonna pay you $50 an hour. What would you say? They're like, yeah, of course I would. Of course I would. I said, exactly. So to me, if I'm a person that has plenty of money and money's nothing but a thing to me, then I can control you with money. I can colonize you. I just colonize your life. I just literally reshape your whole purpose. Now, instead of spending time doing whatever you want to do, you're going to spend thousands of hours. If I employ you for 10 years, let's say, you're going to spend thousands of hours doing something that I told you to do because I gave you this extra money. Well, why is that? Well, because I have a lot of it and you don't have a lot. And I said, this is one of the reasons why any black person that wants to be free or white person that wants to be free should be economically intelligent. They should be financially conscious and they should also be financially literate. Consciousness, intelligence, and literacy, those are three different areas. Intelligence is more of a logical thinking skill. Like, gosh, if I spend thousands of hours doing this, I can't spend thousands of hours doing that. Consciousness means I'm looking down the road and I'm thinking, gosh, 10 years from now, when I look back at my life and I'm old and gray and tired, or 20, 30 years from now, am I going to feel like I spent my time doing something that was meaningful and relevant? And financial literacy just means the basics, the four steps of building wealth: knowing where the money's at, making a plan to go get the money, executing your plan to get the money, and then protecting the money once you acquire it. That is financial. So every person who wants to be free needs to also be financially literate, financially intelligent, financially conscious. If you want freedom and you don't have a commitment to intelligence, literacy, and consciousness, then you will not succeed. There is no way freedom. You need to take the word freedom out of your mouth. You can't be free in a capitalist society when you don't understand money, when you have access to none and no plan to acquire any and don't have the discipline to go get it. If you don't, if that's not a part of your culture, then what you have is what you have. You have what might be called a slave culture. Like, okay, well, I'm not gonna spend any time understanding how to get the resources I need. I'm going to simply not do it and then let the people who have the resources control my life. I will sell myself into slavery to the people that have thought about these things and then hope that they have my best interest at heart. Hope that they don't lead me down a bad path. Hope that I don't run into a Diddy who's going to go and use his money and his power to get me into all kinds of situations that I shouldn't be in. I got my fingers crossed. Well, that's kind of, you kind of rolling the dice with your life there, partner. That's really not gonna get you where you want to be most of the time. And then when something bad occurs, when you realize you have wasted your life, when you look back and you realize that you gave the best years of your life to a job that didn't even appreciate you, that didn't help you build any wealth, that didn't help you actually get ahead on any level, that left you drowning in debt and stress and paycheck to paycheck, you have to kind of process that and say, well, gosh, what happened? How is it that I worked this hard for this many years and I did not get ahead? What's going on? Well, something has to be going on. So there has to be a leak in your bucket. And somebody put you on a treadmill or a hamster wheel and told you that you were running a marathon, that you were running around the park, and you were really just running in place. And so ultimately, I think that one of the biggest goals of economics, in my opinion, in terms of economic intelligence, is to say, how do I make sure that when I go out here and I put out this effort, I'm going to get bang for my buck? There's a theory in finance that basically says that capital must be put to its best available use. Capital must be put to its best available use. So let me process this and let me tell you what this means. Um, One form of capital that you have is what they call human capital. Human capital is all the things that your boss pays for when they hire you. Human capital is your time, it is your energy, it is your attention, it is your skill. You went to get that college degree, that increased the value of your human capital. That's what made you hireable by whatever company picked you up. Well, if you're using this capital to do something, you're putting out this energy, you're getting up every day, you're being disciplined, then it is up to you as a financially conscious, financially intelligent human being to say, what is the best use of my time? What's the best place for me to put my energy? And I don't know if we think about this enough. I think that when you have plenty of time, you're not very time conscious. You just sort of say, waste time. You just do stuff or whatever, and you do whatever you feel like doing. But I can tell you, as a person who my time is more valuable than my money. I am super busy. So literally anything that you ask me to do, I don't do it just because it's a good thing to do. Anything you ask me to do, it can't just be a good thing for me to do. Like if you say, Dr. Boyce, you should go over here and chop down some cherry trees and sell them because you can go make money selling cherry trees. That might be true, but because my time is so full and it's so occupied, in order for me to go do that, I got to stop doing something over here. Do you understand? And so the decision is not as simple as telling me like, oh yeah, you can make money chopping down cherry trees. The question is, can I make more money chopping down cherry trees than I could by spending time working on something else? Do you understand? So it's a different standard. It's a different standard. So ultimately, When you talk about capital being put to its best available use, here's the deal. Here's what you have. You have an investment portfolio decision that you've been making your entire life, and I'm going to break it down for you. Here's what let me make it simple. You're going to die. You're all going to die. Aisha Verzi, who's in here, she sells insurance policies, and she has to remind you that you're going to die. And by the way, if you want to reach out to Aisha and get everything settled, you can go to drboyceoffers.com. Go to the bottom of the page, drboyceoffers.com, and her information is down. Her phone number is down there. She's a really nice lady. Tell her that Dr. Boyce sent you. So you're all going to die. Um, in a given year, you have about 8,760 hours in a year. If you live to be, let's see, it's over a decade, you have about 87,000 hours. So if you extrapolate that 50 years, first 50 years of your life, you've been on this earth, roughly, let's see, what would 80, let's see, 80 times, roughly, let's say about 500,000 hours or so, something like that. It's not quite the same, not quite accurate, but pretty close. And then so by the time you're done, you've got like maybe 700 or 800,000 hours on the planet, right? So you're gonna die. You don't have much time. Thinking about where you're going to apply your energy and your time and your love and everything else is I think an important investment decision for you. It's one where you really want to process this, because if you don't, you'll have a lot of regrets. I heard Will Smith gave a really great interview where he was talking about visualizing his life, and he described how he looks at the future and he puts his life exactly where he wants it to be, and then he works backward from where he is to figure out how to get to the point that he visualized. So he was talking about visualization, or it was similar to a concept in mathematics called dynamic optimization. And dynamic optimization basically means that you look at the end and then you work your way backward, and you say, okay, how do I make sure that at the end I'm where I want to be? Well, that means I got to sort of start there and work back. And Jeff Bezos uses a similar concept that he calls regret minimization. But all these, Will and Jeff, what they were really talking about was the mathematical concept of dynamic optimization. And we used to sit down and do math problems where there were literally formulas and equations to determine the optimal path based on where you want to be at the end. And so really for you, I would encourage you to like do some dynamic optimization in your life. Like if you are 20, I want you to imagine where you want to be at 40, and then ask yourself, where do I need to be at 20 to be where I need to be at 40? Or if you are 50 and you want to be in a certain place when you're 80, maybe when you're 80, you want to look back on your life and be happy about your life. You don't want to feel like you wasted your life. Well, you have to work your way backward and sort of efficiently understand what to do with your time and your energy that's going to really get you to where you want to get to. Because what I believe most people do is they don't do that. They don't have enough consciousness to even visualize the next 5 years, let alone the next 10, 20, or 30 years. And this is a huge mistake. This is a huge, huge mistake, because what happens is that the future keeps sneaking up on you. The future will sneak up on you like, boo, like you're 40. Boo, you're not cool anymore. Boo, you're old now. Oh, you got arthritis, right? And it just pops up on you like, wait a minute, no, that's not supposed to happen. I'm the cool 25-year-old. No, you're not. They're calling you ma'am and sir now. Now you're 35. Now you're older. Or now you're like, no, wait, hold on. I was young and sexy. I was grown and sexy. I'm not, no, now you're grandma. Now all the kids, now you got teenage grandkids. You don't know. Remember a Cameo and Word Up and all that, like that's a Morris Day and the time, and those days are gone. Like that's not interesting anymore to most people. That's like old school stuff. Or your favorite artist is now performing at the oldies concert. And so really time just does that to us, and that lack of time consciousness also translates into where we end up financially and stuff like that. Like literally, here's what I actually mentioned. When I saw people were a little bit upset when I said that a lot of people, there are millions of slaves in America. They call them employees. I kind of just said, to be honest with you, I made the first point that working for someone because you want to is different from working for someone because you have to. But then I also said, if every parent just bought $50 worth of stock for their child from the time they were born, no one would ever have to work for anybody. None of you would have to work for anyone. That's similar to the $5 a day plan, except it's a little bit more. So maybe over 20 years, instead of it being $100,000, you'd have 130, 140,000, depending on what the market does, if the historical trends were to continue. And so to me, a person that's got $100,000, $200,000 in the bank, doesn't really ever have to go to work. They have options. And I say, so when I was explaining to these young guys about working for people and not working for people, I said, look, I don't want you to think I'm telling you that everybody needs to quit their job. I just want you to have options. I never want you to be trapped because when we work with our therapists, in case you guys don't know, we have the first ever Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School, and I'm very proud of this because you won't find this anywhere. Harvard isn't doing this. No HBCUs doing this, not for the Black community anyway. And what we've determined is that part of the reason that there's so much despair and depression and anxiety in the Black community is because people are stuck economically. They are going to jobs that they hate. That's where you experience most of your racism. They got us focused on police shootings, but you know what? Calvin McWilliams, I don't think Calvin's really ever he's not in a situation where he might get shot by a cop. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's not like they're just running through with AK-47s killing thousands of Black people. It's not systematic execution. It's one situation. Like, okay, this guy, something happened and he's a suspect, and again, these are things that are important for sure, not dismissing that at all, but what I look at is the bigger picture, the systematic elements that are destroying the community, the systematic things, right? So if I go and I interview 10 Black people and I say, how many of you have been shot by a cop? Very few of you. In fact, let's try it right now. How many of you have ever been shot at by a police officer? Give me a yes. If a cop has ever pulled out his strap and said, I'm about to take you out. Did that happen to you, Natasha? Latoya, you ever had a popo roll up on you, 5-0, with the gun, with James, Dr. Watts, anybody? How many of y'all? I just need one. I need one person who can say, okay, wait. Michael says, Sherry said, I see yes. Sherry said, oh wow, okay, that's okay. I'm sorry. That's terrible. All right. But I see a lot of no's, right? Okay, I see a lot of no's. But let me ask you another question. How many of you have ever had a racist boss? How many of you have ever been at a job where you felt like the white people were getting more opportunities than you? How many of you have ever been in a situation where you worked harder than the white bitch down the hall and she got the promotion and you didn't? And I say the white bitch down the hall because I've heard Black women say that that old bitch, right? Like, how many of you have ever, been in situations where you were the one Black guy and you got fired on your day off and you still don't know what happened, or you apply for the job and you showed up with your resume and your little degree from Brown University and they still didn't want you and you don't know and they didn't explain it to you. I'm raising my hand because that's what happened to me. What they do in academia, and I was very well trained. I did everything right. I was good at what I did. I mean, I was the only Black man on the planet to get a PhD in finance in 2002. So if you believe, or woman, there was no Black African American woman or man that year. So if you believe what Gen Xers were fed, you believe that I could write my own ticket. You would believe that that I would just be like the number one draft pick. Like I could go straight to Harvard and I'd be at the top of the because all these schools are like, well, we're looking for qualified Black people, and I was qualified. I was trained by some of the best people in the world. A lot of my faculty members on my dissertation committee all studied at the University of Chicago, which is the Vatican of finance. That's where most of the ideas that drive the economy like came out of Chicago. So these was just bad dudes, right? I had to really work hard to impress them enough to get them to sign off on my dissertation. And what would happen is that once I got a little bit political, like again, if I just sort of fit in and just said, okay, you know what? Um, I'm gonna just strip away every piece of who I am, everything that matters to me, in terms of my community and my people. If I let all that go, leave the Negroes behind, then sure, I think I could have rose straight to the top. I think I could have been brought right in. This is that false diversity. This is why I don't have a lot of faith in DEI and all that. I'm not saying I support it. I'm not anti-affirmative action because I benefited from it, but I think it's a problematic short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution because what most institutions want when they say they want diversity is they really don't want true diversity. They really don't want you coming in with a whole host of different ideas that are going to question the foundation of the cultural norms of that space. Remember, a lot of economics is culture. So they don't want you coming in there and saying, God, we need to change this and change that. And this thing y'all been doing for 100 years, that's just wrong and bad. They don't want that. What they want is they need you to celebrate the fact that they're going to accept you despite the fact that you're Black. Like you're already on thin ice. You're already not one of us. You're not like us. You're not like us. You're not like us. So we're gonna give you this job, and you better be grateful, and you better fit in, and you better just. And the more you speak in a way that we can connect to, the more you speak in a way that we understand, the more we're gonna celebrate you because we're really happy to have the black token because then we can tell everybody we're not racist because we'll put the black guy on every brochure and whatever, right? That's kind of what sort of happens. And so I wasn't really that guy. I didn't fit very well. I don't assimilate too good. I'm not so good at fitting into groups. Just it's the bias in how I was raised. I was raised to sort of do what you want to do. And so the more I was showing that side of myself, the more that I would, apply for jobs. And what they would say is at first they'd get very excited and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're so good. We'd love to have you." And then they would Google me, right? And then when they Google me, they see some video of me on CNN angrily talking about a black man who was killed or speaking about racism in America or whatever. And then they say, "Oh," and then they'd email me something polite and they'd say, "We found that you weren't a good fit." And I'm like, "Why am I not a good fit? I'm more qualified than everybody that you already hired. Like, what is happening here?" But there was no reason to give an explanation because again, power trumps everything. So they have power. It's their institution. So basically they were saying because I said so. Like just like your mama, when you'd argue with your mama and you start winning the argument because your mama makes you think that she's actually going to let you debate her. And then when she realizes she's losing the argument, she goes to the trump card. The trump card is, well, because I said so. I don't have to explain anymore because I got the power and you don't. So really, to some extent, if you don't build your own institutions, if black people are not those of us who are not committed to just taking the time, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears, and the years of doing the incredibly non-cool job of building an institution, like you can't when you build that little raggedy business, you're not gonna feel lit. You can't go out and just be in Gucci all the time. You're not gonna be looking fly like your friend who got the fancy job. Your life is not easy. It's gonna be hard. If we don't have people willing to do that work to build the infrastructure, then we're always gonna be in this vulnerable situation where we're trying to operate in a space that was not designed for us. We're literally like earthlings trying to live on Mars. It's very, very hard to do. And so basically that when I talked early, let's circle back. When I was mentioning before, I said, how many of you have been shot at by a cop? I saw very few of you said yes. I saw someone said that a rifle got pulled out of them. I'm very sorry for that. Someone else said yes, that they were shot at. And gosh, I'm glad you're here, right? And then maybe the people who were actually shot are not here because they can't be here because they might be dead. I get it, right? But the numbers did not come close. They paled in comparison to the numbers of you who said yes when I said, how many of you have ever had a racist boss? How many of you have ever had racism and microaggressions on the job? So if you're going to deal with racism and you're going to deal with inequality, you have to deal with the things that are affecting most of us and not just the issues that are affecting some of us. You have to deal with really the what appears to be the mundane as opposed to only focusing on the dramatic. A police shooting is very dramatic, but somebody depressed and becoming an alcoholic and damn near suicidal because they have to go to a job that they hate and be mistreated every day, that feels mundane and it's not dramatic, but it's kind of a slow death. It's a slow spiritual death. It's a slow economic death. It's really really depressing. And really, when they study again in our Black financial therapy department, when my wife just yesterday she was meeting with the students in our mastermind and talking to them about just having the economic or excuse me the economic intelligence or the emotional balance to deal with ups and downs and investing in the stock market, right? So she can talk about these things too. But one of the things that I found when I was researching why people feel depressed is one big variable is when you have a lack of options. When you feel stuck, you get depressed because you have all this energy in you and you can't let it out. Because if you had a solution, you could take all this energy, all this frustration you're feeling, all this anger, and you could apply it to the solution. You could say, I didn't like feeling that way, so I busted my butt to build my business or to go and do whatever to get out of town, right? But you can't do that. So the energy has to be turned inward, and basically you start getting depressed. When they did the study on rats, when they found that rats were trapped, when they were put in a situation where they were going to be in pain, constant pain, and they could do nothing about the pain, that the rats would just get sad. And so a lot of us in our community, in my opinion, this is my theory, a lot of us are like those trap rats. We feel stuck. We're in pain. It's like a slow burn. Like Infinity Song. Infinity Song is that amazing group that's performed at our convention several times. They're now super famous, and they have a really super famous song called "It's Slow Burn." Go look it up. It's a slow burn. It's a great song, and it's interesting because I'm listening to it. I'm like, ooh, I get it. A lot of us are living with the slow burn of feeling the whatever you're the oppression, the racism, maybe it's the economic despair. And I would encourage you to just know that I think one of the solutions is having options. If you have options, you tend to have more power. Also, having options can give you a space where you can heal yourself. You can heal your situation so that you can be in a place where you don't feel all that despair. A lot of it links back to the economics. So, to me, if I'm a parent and I love my kids, and I do, I don't want my kids to be happy. I'm not worried about like, okay, here's what job you're gonna get. This is the profession you're gonna have. They can decide all that on their own. Stop getting caught up in all that stupid stuff. Like, I really, okay, are you a good person? Are you a hardworking person? Are you a happy person? I think maybe you start there, and then you can say, okay, you can be a doctor, dentist, garbage collector, as long as you're a happy human being and you're doing right by the world. We define in America, economically speaking, we are trained to define ourselves by what we do for a living. And I personally think that quality of life can go a long way. So if I want my children to have a high quality of life, then what I do is I help them get their economic training and economic preparation. So we're not just teaching them about the economics or putting them in a position to learn these things. We're also helping them build that wealth, build that arsenal, get that capital base up, get that art, get that weapon and shield up of finances, so that when they get into the world, they're able to protect themselves from all the things in the world that are designed to control you or depress you. In fact, I was talking to, and I'll end on this point, but when I was talking to the two young guys, both of them were 21. I was explaining to them, I said, I said, money is a source of power. Money is used to oppress people. Money is used as a source of colonization. All throughout the history of the world, colonizers have used their wealth to control other people. This goes all the way back to slavery and everything else that happened in Africa. And I said, so for you, especially as a black man, your money is your source of protection. Your money is it allows you to be in a space where someone cannot colonize you. And I said, look at me. I said, I operate in a certain way. I scare a lot of people. I scare white people and I scare black people. And I don't care. And why do I not care? Because I can pay my own bills. It's really that basic. If I could not pay my own bills, then I would have to submit myself to someone that could help me to do that. Do you understand? So I would encourage you, think of economics in that way. Think of it as money is not that important. I don't believe money is that important. Money is important only because it's a gateway. Money is a gateway. It's an energy. It's something that opens you to have access to all the things that money cannot buy, all the things that are more important than money. But you got to think about your economics. And when we don't do that, when we don't prepare our kids, every time I see a kid out here that's struggling at the age of 22 or 23, I literally first thought is like, where are your parents at? Or little girls out here like sleeping with some old man because she can't pay her rent, and I'm like, wow, she's giving away her body for $400 or something. $400 is not a hard amount of money to obtain if you plan for it. I was like, honestly, I'm old school, I'm Southern. I think, where's your daddy at? Like, what your daddy should be doing this for you. Like what's happening here? And so, in my view, I don't think we can disconnect our economic challenges and despair of our young people from what's happening in our families and the lack of preparation or just people not dealing with their shit. Meaning, like if your mama and your daddy are still dealing with psychological issues and trauma that they didn't heal from childhood, then they're not even prepared to be an adequate parent, because a big part of being a parent is being able to put your shit to the side so you can help the kids work through their shit. And a lot of parents can't do that because they're still dealing with that. You 35 still dealing with, childish issues. And so your teenager is sitting there confused because you're so self-absorbed in dealing with your own unhealed, undiagnosed trauma that you can't even turn and say, okay, how do I get you ready for the world? So to some extent, I think a lack of preparation is a big part of our problem. And I was speaking to a military commander this weekend from the Navy, and I said, I think that black people were generally at war. I really believe that. And I said, maybe one of the reasons so many veterans and soldiers follow my platform is because I'm really big on preparing. And we were talking about, preparing for war, preparing for what's coming down the pike and how they think, how military people think. And I really think as a community, we can learn from that. If you prepare, Sun Tzu in The Art of War, he says that wars are won before they begin. Every battle is won pretty much before it even starts. And so if you believe that battles are won while you're in the actual battle, then you don't understand how battles are fought. We prepare. So if I want my kid to be prepared for all the wars that are going to come up in his life, all the situations where he's going to end up getting attacked, somebody's going to try to control him, somebody's going to try to enslave him, somebody's going to try to beat him down, somebody's going to try to end his life, somebody's going to try to take him out in some spiritually, psychologically, financially, or otherwise. Oh, we're going to be ready for that. We're going to have a battle plan for that. We're going to prepare for that, right? And the how you prepare, there's a multitude of ways you do that, but you got to think about these things. I mean, why would I sound extreme talking about this? Unless you believe that black people are supposed to just get their asses kicked all the time, and unless you believe that we're always supposed to be laying there with somebody else's foot on our neck, I don't think we are. I think that we should learn also from every tragedy. I noticed, for example, I don't know if we necessarily learn from tragedy the way we should. We mourn tragedy, we cry about it. When Whitney Houston dies from a drug overdose, not one single person I saw anywhere said, maybe this is why the black community should rethink our position on drugs. Maybe this is why we shouldn't have rappers mass promoting drug addiction to young people. Maybe this is why we should realize that maybe being rich and famous isn't as important as actually being healthy. Maybe we should think about and diagnose and dissect this situation, like do an autopsy on the life of Whitney Houston and say, how do we lose this $1 billion asset to drugs which could have easily been prevented? How does DMX die at 45, 40, 50 years old, after a lifetime of just literally throwing away opportunities? Because remember, what does the word poor stand for? Poor. Anybody remember? Poor. Poor stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. Passing over opportunities repeatedly. So when you look at the community and you say, gosh, black people are poor. How did we get so poor? Oh, we're passing over opportunities repeatedly. We have Mike Tyson come along, who could have been a billionaire by now, but instead, because he got wrapped up in drugs and bad culture, Mike Tyson is a guy with a lot of regrets who's trying to rebuild and fix everything later on. And he's so busy trying to fix it for himself, he hasn't been able to do what he really could have done. He could have been a billionaire version of Muhammad Ali and went around the world literally creating millions of jobs for black people. But instead, he's this old drug addict has cleaned up his life and is now trying to do good things. And he's a lovable guy now, but that's not even a fraction of what he could have been. You can keep going down the list. You can really, I mean, when you talk about celebrities, there's so many cases where you're like, gosh, this guy he really could have been something. Tupac would have been a billionaire, but bad culture. He's surrounded by people that want to kill him. He's not necessarily the best in terms of conflict resolution. He makes a song called "Hit 'Em Up," which is basically putting a target on his back. In the culture, you've got guys like Diddy who are gonna take it very personally when you say these things, and maybe next thing you know, you sleeping with the fishes, and all of this is preventable. And this is one of I circle back and remind you, like, this is why I think I surprised a lot of people when I wrote the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, and I wrote a lot about culture. Because again, you got to understand that economic prosperity is heavily linked to culture. You have to have a culture of economic success, a culture of educational success, a culture of spiritual success. You got to have a culture that breeds that. Just like when you grow flowers, you have to have the right soil. So when you look at the culture, you look at the cultural soil, sometimes the cultural soil is bad. And a lot of the cultural soil is heavily infected by even the types of music that is drilling into the subconscious minds of young children. Young children. Like, literally get high on drugs, kill everybody, destroy your life, waste all your money. Don't respect women, get every girl pregnant. And then you wonder, and then you turn around, you're like, oh my God, where did all this happen? Oh, white people did it. They did it, but they didn't do it in the way that you think. They did it basically by you allowing others to infiltrate your culture and infiltrate the mind and the spirits of your children. You've allowed them to get you to celebrate the whole culture, mainly, unfortunately, in toxic hip hop, that literally elevates every single thing that leads to your self destruction. And then you wonder why you destroy yourself. It's because you did a damn good job preparing for self destruction because it feels good. It's just like eating food. If all I do is eat food based on how good it tastes, then I'm going to eventually kill myself. If I don't have the consciousness to say this tastes good, but this ain't good for me, then I will kill myself. So when they've reduced your consciousness and get you vibrating on the animal frequency, animals do that. Animals will only eat things because they taste good. They're not thinking about the nutritional value of anything that they eat. Well, if you want to kill an animal, then you create something that tastes really good and you put poison in it. And he'll eat it and eat it and eat it all day. So if you are not spiritually together, if you are not conscious as a human being, financially conscious, conscious when it comes to health, relationships, everything else, then they're going to simply take the poison, put it in something good, maybe put it to a beat, right? In some hip, some cool ass music, right? To a beat, and you will eat the poison up all day and celebrate the poison. And then you'll even get mad at people like myself who might step up and say, don't eat that, don't take that in, don't consume that. So consciousness is critical. If we don't gain consciousness, maybe some discipline, then we're going to lose. Those of you that have the consciousness and discipline, I also want to encourage you because I know that sometimes you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. I walk in, I'm the nerd in the room. I'm the guy who's too serious. I'm the guy who's being uppity. That I've been accused of all these things. I've been accused of being uppity because I say, we need to really think about things. We need to be more intelligent. Oh, why are you talking like that? You just talk like that because you're a professor. I have people get mad at me because I'm a professor. I'm like, I cannot apologize for wanting to be smart. I cannot apologize for wanting to be a thinker. That's never going to happen. And so really, I want to encourage you to just know that if what you're doing is really working for you, if you're really where you want to be, and I'm not just talking about money, money's part of it, but spiritually, psychologically, your family's where you want it to be, you're making things work with your spouse. I want to encourage you to keep going down that path because you've got a whole toxic culture, even online, where they make men feel bad because they love their wives, and they make women feel bad because they honor their husbands. That or they make or you go to school and they make kids feel bad because they study and want to work hard, or they make people feel like they're lame because like the guy who's saving money and so he can have a good future is considered lame as opposed to the guy who wasted every nickel in his bank account so he could wear designer clothes. Like the so-called lame guy who's studying hard and saving his money, he goes on those shows and they pop the balloon, pop, 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 pop. He's lame, he's lame, he's lame, right? But then this loser comes in there, some old weed smoking junkie who likes to get drunk every weekend, who blows his whole paycheck on designer clothes and whatever. Oh, they love that. They think that's cool. They think that's sexy. And then 5 years later, you're complaining because your baby daddy's a loser. Well, because you pick losers. Nobody taught you how to pick a winner. Nobody taught you how to understand what a great man or great woman looks like when they're in development. Like no one, you show someone's food that's not cooked yet, they might say, why would I want that steak? That thing is raw. That's nasty. I don't want to eat that in raw steak. You don't understand. That steak might just be in the oven, and once it gets done cooking, it's going to be delicious. It's going to be great. And some people have the vision to see that. Some people don't. Some people need stuff that's already done and it looks good. And it's like almost like Michelle and Barack, like a lot of women that wanted to be with Barack Obama when he became president are not the ones who would have chosen Barack back when he was so broke that he couldn't afford a rental car. They would have thought that was corny. They would have thought he was a nerd. And so I would personally say consciousness is critical. And whatever that means for you, let it mean whatever it's going to mean. I would encourage you to maybe sit down and think about what is your 5 or 10 year plan. I would encourage you to just meditate and to imagine the year 2034 and just sort of think about where you'd want to be financially in the year 2034 and to accept the idea that the year 2034 is going to come very quickly. 2034 is going to come as quickly as 2024 did back in 2014. When you were in 2014, you probably didn't even think about 2024. You thought it was either never going to get here or it's going to be like forever. Now it's here. It came just like that. It's so fast. A lot of you remember 2014 like it was yesterday. Well, in 2034, you're going to remember 2024 like it was yesterday. So I would encourage you to just say, pick maybe one thing and just say, by 2034, this one thing is going to be where I want it to be. Even if you're older, even if you don't think you're going to be around in 2034, that's okay. Your grandkids will be. Your children will be your friend. The world is still going. Black people are still going to be black. We're going to be still complaining about the same issues. We're still going to be going into every election with people telling us that if we don't vote for so and so, then the world's going to come to an end. A lot of things are going to still be the same because. And how do I know this? Well, because patterns matter. A lot of the things that were being done in 2014 are exactly like what they are in 2024. Sure, there's some modifications. We get some developments, AI and all that. But really, think about this, right? Even when we talk about politics, I was looking at the scare tactics that are being used to get people to vote for this politician or the other. And again, I don't judge who you're voting for, so that's not even part of the discussion. So let's not get into that. But I look at the scare tactics that are used now. Like I think for on the Democratic side, it's like a conversation about this Project 2025, and I looked it up, and I because I think Taraji was like, look up Project 2025, y'all gotta look it up, and I looked it up, and I was like, is this a policy? Is this something that people are actually doing? Like, is this something that they said they're really going to do? Or is this something that some fringe group wrote up as like the dream team of what they'd like the world to look like? And I didn't find any evidence that it was actually going to be implemented. And I remember thinking, well, if they were really going to do this, why didn't they just do it? Why didn't they do it the first time? Like they had 4 years to do all this. Why didn't they do it back then? Except maybe call it Project 2018 or Project 2021. Like I just didn't understand that, right? But anyway, so here's the thing, and then you can think what you want about it, right? Go research it if you want to, have your debates. I'm not trying to do that here, but the funny thing is, I remember I said, "Well, y'all remember?" I said, the thing that makes me a little skeptical right now is every election. I always predict this. Every time there's an election, there's always something that's like scary, like. If you don't do this, bad things are going to happen. And I said, anybody remember when Diddy was doing vote or die? Like they were telling people that if you want to live, you have to vote. You have to vote for us. Like vote or die. Like that's pretty extreme. Like if you don't vote, you're going to be dead. I don't know if Diddy was going to show up at your house and kill you. South Park did an episode like that where they literally found like Diddy found out that people weren't voting and he showed up at their house and killed them. Now that's not such a joke because Diddy's been accused of killing people. So maybe that's what it was. If you don't vote, Diddy's gonna come kill you. But either way, though, it's still one of these things where it's like, why are you trying to scare me to get me to do what you want me to do? How about you just impress me? How about you persuade me? I think persuasion is a much more respectable way to approach things than to just use fear, right? And I think that's true in any context. As a father, when I deal with the kids, I'm their bonus dad, and I always mention that. And I love their father. I respect him. He's a great man. And but I had to earn the respect from the children, right? So I could have came in and just said, you know what, I'm the man of the house. This is my house. I'm the boss. You do what I say, and blah 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 blah. And maybe I could have gotten them to submit, but it wouldn't have been authentic. But instead, I did something that was a little bit harder, something that broke a generational curse, and that was I said, maybe I can persuade them. Maybe I can just show them what kind of man I am, and that I'm there for them, that I have their back, and that I'm very consistent, and I'm never going to go nowhere. And then over time, they will eventually connect with me on some level, right? And that's exactly what happened. I just, the 21-year-old that I took down to the NASCAR thing, he's not my real son. He's 6'9". I can't make a baby that tall. But we're cool. We're really cool. And we talked about that. And I was like, yeah, it took a long time for us to really get cool with each other. He's like, yeah, I'm really sorry that I had the resistance and everything. I said, no, it's okay. I get it. And I was really proud. Like that to me, honestly, that was one of my most proudest achievements. Not, it's like because I think kids are so important and so valuable, and it sometimes requires creative thinking. I wish they did that politically, right? So the reason I brought that up is because I took the time to persuade them to connect with me as opposed to forcing them, as opposed to scaring them into it, right? And that was just thought that was the appropriate way to approach things. That's how you approach things with love and care, as opposed to force and oppression. And I think when they try to scare me into voting for somebody, that makes me less likely to want to do it because you're not going to control me with fear. You got to understand how fear is used as a weapon and as a tool to keep people under control. There are all these theories about how government officials they know that if they can declare an emergency or be in a state of war, that you're going to just submit because you're operating on the fear frequency. And a lot of y'all, unfortunately, you've been stuck and you've been trained, you've been in a culture where every decision is made out of fear. Nothing is done out of desire. Nothing is done out of hope for a better life. And I can just tell you, if you want to find any instinct that will kill your consciousness in a second, it'll be fear. Because it raises all those cortisol levels. They're leaning on your trauma. Traumatized people are easily frightened. All you got to do is re-trigger their trauma. Oh, well, if I don't do what you say, then those bad things are gonna happen again. And I don't want you living in fear like that. Because not only is that unfair and it's oppressive, but it's also bad for your health. If you ever want to die young, spend your whole life scared all the time. because your cortisol kills you. Look it up. Look it up. Again, thanks to our Black Financial Therapy Department. This is what the stuff my wife, who's a great therapist, who has broken this stuff down to me. So don't live your life in fear. Confront the fear, deal with it, figure out what's going on there, do the healing, and then give yourself space to dream. Have a dream. What is your dream? I know what you're afraid of, but tell me what you're dreaming about. And I think that's a better life for you. So anyway, that's it, guys. I'm done. Thank you guys for listening. It was great to talk to you today. Again, I mentioned Aisha Versey, she's a great friend to the Black Business School, and she is also she's actually a student in the mastermind too. But anyway, if you want to get some help on your financial stuff and you want to also talk to her about insurance policies, I believe everybody should have insurance. They also have other investment tools and stuff like that. Call her. Her phone number is if you go to drboyceoffers.com, drboyceoffers.com, and you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see Aisha's information. She literally shares her phone number. Just call her. Like they just know she's really busy, but just let her know I sent you. And I think that that's someone that you can look to if you want to. I don't know, get some support in that area. And then also, last but not least, those of you that are in the Prime program, I'm going to send out the Moneymaker Grid later on today. So make sure that you keep an eye out on your text list. If you're in the Prime program, make sure you text the word options to 87948. I'm going to text it out. Now you have to log in to get it, but those of you that are interested in taking a look at that program, feel free to do that. That's where we actually generate income by selling stock options, and I think you're going to like what you see. All right, guys, I'm out of here. God bless you. I hope you have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow, and